Top 5 in Godzilla crossovers that should have happened by now, but at least Cthulhu vs. Godzilla is happening, so I guess that makes it top 4 on my list, right? But today, Ultraman and Godzilla are going to be going head to head, but not in the way you guys think here. You see, Godzilla has had a plethora, and I mean a plethora of franchises over the years that just keep on succeeding. Maybe. I understand that not everyone did like the Godzilla Earth series, but again, it is a successful franchise, nevertheless, here. And Ultraman has always had a plethora of monsters that, in all honesty, could fit in the Godzilla verse as a whole. But today, we're going to take one monster and throw him into a verse. We're going to take one of Ultraman's toughest monsters and throw them into the Showa verse. Now, I guess you guys already know the monster, but what if I told you this monster is definitely one of the top tiers of the Ultraman verse, outside of Eukilosaurus and is on par with the Red King? That's right, we're talking about Gomora today, and we're going to see if he can take on in solo the entirety of the Heisei verse, or at the very least, the heavy hitters. Let's talk about it. Now, first things first, we're going to have to address the scaling, and believe it or not, Showa is pretty simple. The Showa verse, or at least the heavy hitters that I'm going to use here, are at least universal. Now, this is important because Zone Fighter, who provides the universal feat, was able to destroy the monster Dorora and even break its fourth dimensional barrier, which made it intangible to anything on the material plane or the third dimensional plane. And yet Zone Fighter shattered it like it was nothing and then proceeded to kill that monster. And then when Dorora came back stronger, he then proceeded to kill him again. Following up, he comes back a third time, and Godzilla is apparently able to kill him this time. So this actually is pretty important because the monsters we are going to be using, and believe it or not, some of them will be having weaker partners in this one, because in all honesty, some of them just don't really scale to that higher margin here. But let's talk about it. So the duos and singles we are going to be doing are the following. We're going to be doing them in this order. So it's going to be Gigan and Megalon, Titanosaur and Mechagodzilla. Then it's going to be Zone Fighter, then Godzilla, and then finally King Ghidorah. So, alright, so each of these monsters, they're the top tiers of the verse, and believe it or not, 4 out of the couple I just named here are actually universal. But let's talk about Gomora here. How strong is he? Well, let's actually discuss some of his hacks and abilities. As you guys can see here before you, he's blowing up another monster with his horn. Now, this is because he's able to channel energy through his horn and actually blow people up from the inside out. Now, this is actually a pretty remarkable feat because, again, Ultraman was able to tank a clone that was much stronger than the original because of, again, it was made in the super dimension that Belial used, so he tried to use that on him, and well, Ultraman was able to tank it. But this actually channels energy through the monster on the inside out and causes them to blow up. So essentially, it could bypass durability with absolute ease here. Now, he's also able to manipulate energy and throw out these kind of like range attacks here. He's able to use them to, well, blind his opponents or just flat out incinerate them entirely. Gomora is also a great, and I mean a great hand-to-hand fighter, being able to take on the likes of Red King when he had help from 2 other monsters, overwhelm Zaton, which is actually a pretty astonishing feat on its own here, and believe it or not, if he decides that the opponent is a little too strong, he'll just turn into his EX form. And he's one of, I think, only 2 monsters that can actually use this, with the second one I'm aware of being Red King. So him being able to use this is actually pretty astounding here. Gomora is also extremely agile, being able to keep up with Ultraman and monsters that can obviously fight him. Even being able to, well, do the same things Godzilla can do and do a gravity-defying, drop kick and, a flying headbutt, which he used on King. So, yeah, when I tell you these arrows were just full of ridiculousness, but yet they were able to get away with it so easily because, again, why wouldn't they? it's pretty simple here. But again, you guys are probably wondering what's the scaling here. Now, if you saw my Ultraman running the Godzilla Gauntlet video, then you would understand that, yeah, these guys can reach from universal to complex multiversal. However, we're going to be equalizing the tier, meaning we're actually going to be keeping Gomora capped around the universal tier. And believe it or not, it's actually not hard to do so, considering the likes of Zayton was actually known to be able to destroy the entire universe and everything in it, even the stuff of space itself, which again would actually be a 4D feat on its own, because again, he's able to eliminate everything in the entire universe, even the reality that it's in. So with that being said here, I think that does cover Gomora, and we can actually begin with our first matchup being Gigan and Megalon, the Scythe brothers, or the alien duo, or whatever y'all want to call him here. Now, believe it or not, I do think Megalon is obviously the weakest link here. He does not get the universal scaling, albeit he is pretty petty when he was beating Jet Jaguar, and Jet Jaguar is one of the upper tier monsters, but not in the same likes of Zone Fighter and, well, Godzilla, at least at that point here. But again, he does scale to a much stronger Godzilla here, which would actually be around the, whatchamacallit, I think he would be around the star levels at that lower tier point here, or at least solar system level, which again is not bad on its own, considering a fireball from Zayton can eliminate an entire solar system like it's nothing. Megalon should be able to at the very least, be a distraction for Gigan to get in solid blows. But now let's talk about Gigan. Believe it or not, he's actually, well, kind of defenseless against Gomora in this situation here. Now, in a hand-to-hand situation, yeah, Gigan definitely has some upper hand abilities. But the sheer fact that Megalon is the only one with a range attack, at least when it comes to these two at this point here. Now, again, I could possibly be missing something, but I do not remember Gigan using his laser attacks here. There's also the sheer fact that Megalon can burrow at Mach 2, which that's not going to help against an opponent, and the sheer fact that you might be the slowest of the group here. So this means that Gomora can actually take advantage of the fact that not only does Megalon, or is Megalon the only one that has a long-ranged attack here, but he is the slowest and the weakest of the group here, meaning that Gomora could basically just vaporize him entirely and go just, you know, fight against Gigan in a one-on-one situation. Now, Gigan, believe it or not, is just going to be an absolute pain when it comes to his saw blades and stuff like that there. And if he does prove to be way too much of a problem, then Gomora could just go into his EX form, and, well, it's pretty much over from right then and there here. And again, the problem with Gigan not having any ranged attacks just doesn't help him here. And while I do think the Exploding Horn attack is not the safest option, it could potentially work still if he, like, pins Gigan and then just stabs him in the side with his horn and just causes him to blow up that way. So I do think that Gomora beats these two with, like, low to mid difficulty. But next up, Titanosaurus versus Mechagodzilla. Now, this is actually a much more lethal duo than the original two, as again, they were stronger than him at that point, and Mechagodzilla did come back stronger than at least from his previous encounter with Godzilla and King Caesar. So with that being said here, how do they actually fare against Gomora? Or how does Gomora, fare against them? Well, obviously, Titanosaur is going to be the one carrying here because of his muscle. And plus, it was just really in character for Mechagodzilla to kind of just hang back while Titanosaurus did most of the dirty work anyway. So yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting, but I do think Titanosaurus can get dealt with by the Exploding Horn. And, well, the long-range attacks would just wear him out, plus Gomora's speed here. Now, if this fight took place in something like in a more aquatic area, then yeah, I could definitely see Titanosaurus putting up a decent fight and getting the upper hand. But more often than not, I kind of just see Gomora just like outperforming Titanosaurus, using his roll attack, his better hand-to-hand combat, and again, if Titanosaurus does do his, jump attack, then there's really no problem for Gomora to just jump at him like he did with King and just headbutt him that way. Or again, jump up, Exploding Horn, GG. Now, that kind of just leaves us with Mechagodzilla in this situation, unfortunately. And, well, in all honesty, I think it's just prolonging the inevitable, in my opinion, here. Now, Mechagodzilla may even force Gomora to go into his EX form, but that's the best he can do here. Mechagodzilla's best things here are really his missiles and the sheer fact that they can harm and pierce through Godzilla's skin to the point where he is bleeding. And again, he is known to have an unlimited amount, and with his space titanium, he is a bit tougher than Gomora. However, the issue that is pretty much there would definitely be the lasers that can pretty much counter Gamora's energy blast. And then there's also the shield that I almost said Space Godzilla, that Mechagodzilla has. And believe it or not, I kind of see Gomora just going into his EX mode after a while here. Yeah, the reason why I'm saying that is because Space Godzilla has a lot of versatility that is meant to overwhelm his opponents. And if we're being honest, that is his thing. He's just an overwhelming military machine. Or, alien military machine. You guys get the point, right? The sheer fact that, again, he's just meant to overwhelm his opponent is actually going to be really helpful in the fight against Gomora. But with Titanosaurus going down the quickest due to, again, Gamora's overall combat speed, having him better ranged attacks, and can just honestly just eliminate Titanosaurus a lot quicker than Mechagodzilla, then this means that Gomora is just going to move on to, well, I guess you could say bombarding Mechagodzilla with his own attacks, and then likely going to his EX form for, just to end it right then and there because of all that overwhelming weaponry. But next up we have Zone Fighter, and well, believe it or not, Zone Fighter is definitely more skilled than Gomora. That actually gives him the edge in a hand-to-hand fight, meaning he actually is going to be performing a lot better than the other combatants. But here's the thing. There is, well, really one way to look at this here. And that is, do we consider Zone Fighter more skilled, stronger, and tougher, and with better tech than Ultraman? I think that is one of the more interesting arguments we could have here, considering the sheer fact that, again, Ultramans are basically like Power Rangers on steroids, Like, they're actually the Power Rangers and the Megazord put together. That's what I'm trying to say here. You see, the idea and the problem that we actually have here is the sheer fact that Ultraman is definitely more powerful than Zone Fighter, and is a much more advanced, I guess you could say, being, or a much more advanced, well, combination of tech and man than Zone Fighter is here, with him having much more devastating attacks and abilities that Gomora is able to tank and withstand here. So, geez, I guess with that being said here, I kind of just answered my own question, and Gomora would honestly just move on. I mean, Ultraman has a hard time with Gomora, despite with him being more skilled, and he's got way more advanced weaponry than Zone Fighter here, and it's honestly just sad. I'm not saying that Zone Fighter is weak or anything, but again, comparing him to Ultraman, it's just horrible. However, I do think Zone Fighter could definitely push Gomora to go into his EX form a bit earlier, because again, he is more prone to use skill in combat than the likes of Ultraman. So that does give him an edge here, plus with his missiles and stuff like that, plus his own energy blast. Yeah, I definitely see Gomora beating him mid to high difficulty. But next up, Godzilla. Showa Godzilla versus Gomora. And I believe everybody would love to see Godzilla and Gomora on the big screen. Now, this is actually pretty interesting, and it definitely would be a pretty funny fight, because again, they both do the same exact thing as each other though. They both can take these devastating and overwhelming hits here and just get right back up and heal from them like they're nothing. Then you have the sheer fact that they just give the middle finger to gravity altogether. I mean, we all remember Godzilla's famous drop kick, right? And then you have Gomora simply leaping at his opponents, just throwing full-on gravity out the wind and just doing a flying headbutt. Like he's a whole Pokemon here. So, in all honesty, how do I think this fight plays out? Well, I do think these two could definitely start off evenly. I mean, Godzilla and Showa is a very skilled fighter, but again, he is still a slugger at the end of the day, which again would actually, make it pretty even for Gomora in general. And then I do think the fight would escalate to the point where their atomic breath and their overall versatility also counters each other here. However, what I do think is going to make the difference is, again, that EX form. You see, with Gomora actually being now much more powerful than his base self, which I do believe would be able to stalemate Godzilla here, this then just turns it into his favor. And honestly, Godzilla's healing factor would be his saving grace if this fight were to continue. It's very possible he could overwhelm Gomora or just wear him down, is what I'm trying to say here. But at the end of the day, I do think Gomora could just overwhelm him in that EX form with his physical strength here. Do I think it's a clean fight? No, that is a high to extreme difficulty matchup. However, again, both of these guys are going to be doing some of the most hilarious stuff to each other that we've ever seen. I mean, just look how Godzilla killed Gigan with his tail. It's it's one of the most ridiculous things out there. But with that being said here, yeah, I do think Gomora does beat Godzilla high to extreme difficulty. Just has a lot more overwhelming power. However, he stops at Ghidorah. Yeah, there's no way that in this whole universal tier cap is he beating King Ghidorah at all. I mean, this is a monster who at the end of the series needed everybody to jump him. From Godzilla to Rodan to Mothras to Varan to Manda. Alright, King Caesar, Gorosaurus, Manila, etc. Yeah, they all had to jump this man. Alright, and he was still holding his own against all of them. And again, I just kind of feel bad because, they was just stomping this man out, beating him down. But again, he was doing his thing. And let's not forget the first movie, they had to jump him still with Rodan, Mothra, and Godzilla, doing their thing. But again, at the end of the day here, King Ghidorah in this universal versus universal level stature is where Gomora would actually stop. There is no way he is beating every earth monster just jumping him all together here. As a matter of fact, that may actually be a very good video. I may have to cook something up as the final video of these kaiju waves. I definitely think I'm going to cook one up. But overall here, does Gomora solo the Showaverse in this cap tier? No. However, if we gave him his full-blown, scaling, which is like complex multiversal, then yeah, he would win here, and he would then get stumped out by Heisei, which is in the hyperversal category, if you have ever seen any of my videos. But hey, that's going to be all today. Please comment down below, like, and subscribe, and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. Peace.